Hey gang, just sitting here on my garden deck. This first video is just going to be about how we got here and some of the things we did along the way, just to give you an overview of how our trip's gone for the last month or so. Catch you soon. Well, I'm gonna tell you guys how the first part of the trip went. That's the goal of this video. There'll be maybe a little bit of background noise, but I preferred this by far to sitting in my room and telling you about the first part of the trip. So you all know that we started in Portland. The flight took us through Honolulu and then all the way to Incheon, which is the airport for South Korea, for Seoul. And you know, you have to go about an hour from the airport to get in from the airport into the actual place in Seoul. And you can see where we went was this Maedong district, which is Myeongdong, which is really a nice central district to a lot of things in Seoul. But the first thing to tell you is, of course, all trips never go exactly the way you plan. And this trip, the snafu was that right before the start of the trip, Katie tweaked her back, and that became really obvious on that long flight day. That we weren't going to be doing the trip that we imagined, because she was largely immobile and in a lot of pain, and we had to adapt by taking a taxi from the airport into Seoul. So for now, I'm just going to gloss over a bit of that and tell you a bit more about Seoul. It's just my impressions on Seoul. This video, I'm just going to kind of have myself droning on in the background for the most part, and showing you lots of photos and videos from Seoul and Taiwan. So, you know, for Seoul, the first thing is just to talk about the little neighborhood we were in Myeongdong. It was really close to a green area, and I spent a lot of time, Katie was laid up, but I spent a lot of time walking up into the hills, looking for birds. One of the birds that I did see was a jay. That's the symbol of Korea, or of Seoul, and I got some video of that. But yeah, wandering around the green areas was really pretty. Seoul itself is just an amazing city, you know, super Asian megalopolis place. That is just is built up. There's so much more upward development in these big cities in Asia than there are in comparable places back home. But the other thing is just, it's very clean, it's very modern. The subway system is crazy well developed. They have 28 different subway lines, and you know, they cover this huge area of the city. You can literally get anywhere, and you're almost never very far away from a subway stop. So for Seoul, that's definitely the way to go, and that's the way I traveled around. The other thing that we spent time, Myeongdong is known as being a shopping area. Lots of cosmetics. Korea really big on cosmetics. And at night there's a big night market, and so every evening I would usually go down there to get food to bring back to Katie for dinner and things like that. And so, you know, seeing how those night markets stretch out, this is also fairly typical in Asian cities. You know, just lots of food stalls, lots of places to look at different food that's being created. So it was a lot of fun. It was good people watching, lots of good food. Then, you know, after that, one of the other areas I wanted to take in was the Busan Hanok village area, which basically is old historic homes. And old isn't very old by our reckoning, or by theirs. it's more like 1950s, 1960s. It's post World War II and post Korean War development stuff. But they're old wooden homes, and what's happened is they've done a lot of restoring of those places and made them into in order to restore them and really make the woodwork well, they've invested a lot of money, and so most of them now have become kind of high-end restaurants, high-end shopping areas, so jewelry stores, restaurants, and apparently they've been featured in lots of those areas have been featured in lots of K-dramas, so a lot of people go there just to see the restaurant that their favorite character from a K-drama got, proposed to in, or whatever it is in the K-drama. So that's a real popular area. After that, I did a lot of other wandering around. I went over to the Gangnam area, which is where that song came out of, so, got things like that. I also went in that same area. There was a really nice Buddhist temple that I went and visited and strolled around. It seems like anywhere I go, I did this in Taiwan too, anywhere I go I end up in Buddhist temples wandering around. They're just pleasant spaces to wander around, and they're almost all open and almost all free also. I'm sure in Thailand I'll do even more of that. I may even take some classes in Buddhism because I think that's fairly common to do here. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, Seoul. Highly recommend it. It was fascinating to wander around, but I obviously would have preferred to wander around it with my partner, and Katie was laid up, so I really didn't get as much exploration as I might have. Moving on to Taipei, so the airport experience for our leg to Taipei was interesting because we came into the airport and immediately requested a wheelchair for Katie. What that does is it's a killer travel hack. I mean, I wouldn't say that anybody should take advantage and get a wheelchair if they don't really need one. But I will say when you do that, you're just whisked to places and you're brought around the airport really fast. You get through security and customs really fast. It is a really nice travel hack. Arrival in Taipei, again, we used a taxi. And again, it was a fairly long distance between the airport itself and central Taipei, where we were staying. The whole way, like probably 80 to 90% of that was an expressway, and it was all elevated viaduct. And I remember thinking at the time that, wow, we have only created a few pieces of viaduct for high-speed train, and this is like 28 miles of elevated viaduct, huge structures. Arriving in Taipei, we got there at night. Again, Katie fairly immobile. She was really game to do things, but we really weren't exploring right away. But again, the city really well laid out. We were in a good central area, it was called, I'm not going to remember it, Zimin. Shimen area. Yeah, you too. But it was a nice area to stay in. The hotel was good, and I just did a lot of walking around. The immediate vicinity that we were in was obviously lots of high-end sound equipment, but like retro sound equipment. So equalizers, turntables, all of that kind of stuff, all coming back to have nice retro vibes. So a lot of the shops around us were selling like these really nice speaker sets. I don't think I got any shots of those. Once again, went to some of the major sites in Taipei. Basically, one of the taller buildings there that is kind of a symbol for Taipei. You usually see it on all the brochures, and it is a really elegant architecture. I went and looked at that only from the ground. I didn't go up to the top like a lot of people do, just because it was expensive and a long line. And I couldn't take Katie, so I didn't really want to do it. But mostly we ate. We ate really good food there. We had all sorts of traditional Taiwanese dishes. One of the best things we found was kind of a beef noodle soup. It was really hand-cut noodles and a really rich beef sauce with good chunks of just fall apart in your mouth beef chunks. So yeah, really good food again. We also found some nice coffee shops. Coffee seems to be one of those things that's a little bit of a bugaboo. You know, I'm used to getting up early. I still want to get up early, but finding a coffee shop in Asia that's open before 8, 8:30, 9 is like really hard. And both in Korea and Taiwan, I had a lot of trouble finding a coffee shop that would open before, let's say, 7. I think the earliest I found was 7. So I started getting used to just getting up closer to that time, sleeping in by my accounts, and then going out and getting coffee at 7. Another interesting thing is, you know, mostly all coffee is espresso. There's not really just brewed or drip coffee. And coffee seems to have its own economy, meaning it's priced more for like what we would expect back in the US. It's still cheaper than Starbucks, and Starbucks here or anywhere in Asia is more expensive than the local espresso places. But it's significant when you compare it to the actual prices of everything else that you're buying. I think this is basically it for my premiere video. You know, just kind of reflections on travel, and I think they're all heavily colored by the fact that, you know, I was kind of seeing them on my own and not running around with Katie seeing stuff. So my plan is to put together a short video that goes into a little more the medical and how we were dealing with all that stuff for Katie, and go into her issue a little bit more and how she's doing. I'll have a separate video on that coming up pretty quickly. And then I'm going to have one that's just kind of our time here in Bangkok, which I think will be a much better video. That'll have a lot of fun stuff to share and some more good video to show. That's another piece with this first video. You know, those first parts of the trip, I wasn't thinking about shots that I needed or taking my video cam out with me and thinking of how to do shots or what story I would be wanting to tell. Partly because, again, Katie was laid up and I was more focused on all of those aspects. But yeah, I think by the time I get to the Bangkok thing, you're going to see something a little bit more polished. It probably still won't have, you know, a great intro and good theme music or any of that kind of stuff. I'll get to all those things later if I really enjoy producing these YouTube videos. But I hope you guys appreciate what I did share, and it gives you a little more an idea of what we're experiencing. And I look forward to any comments. I think the comment page will be useful. You know, tell me what you liked and didn't like. I'm fine with that. But yeah, here it is. That's a wrap on my first video.